Yes, to go back a bit, we were still in Pearl River before we ever went to Delaware, of course. And your mother gave birth to our first son in February the 7th of 51. Yeah. And his name was Dwayne, or he was, no, it wasn't 51.
Randy was 51.
Randy was 51.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 49, February of 49.
Okay.
And unfortunately, he was born a little premature and died.
Hmm.
In those days, they didn't have all of the great life-saving devices as they do today for premature births. It was a devastating blow for your mother and I, devastating. And we buried him in Pearl River in a little cemetery off of Franklin Avenue. And the one thing I remember is Benny Thies. He had a store on the corner of Franklin and Main, and he donated to clothes. I knew him as a veteran in that. And up in Shanky's funeral home, which was one of the two in Pearl River, my father and Mr. Campbell, they dressed the baby. They put these woolen leggings on, and then like a little hooded jacket, and my father and him held the baby, who was dead, not of course, dressed him, and we buried him. There was a snowstorm. We buried him there in that little cemetery. And like I say, it was a devastating thing for us. The families all were upset by it. But we went on, and like I say, we worked that year until the summer. Now, he had died in February, so in June or July, we quit Rockland, and we decided on making a life in Delaware at my father's farm, which, as I said, was next to Grandpa Cornish's. And we had, in the meantime, filled it with furniture. Went down there, and I said we ordered our chickens from Sears Roebuck. I think we ordered 300, and put them in what they call a brooder house. That was the name they called it. And we raised them successfully. And again, your mother became pregnant, and we stayed there for the year in the winter. And that next June, she gave birth to our second son, Duran Darrell, who we called Randy. And we stayed there, actually lived there, and we decided after a year or so that wasn't for us. The people, we loved them, but they were different, and it was kind of a backward place. It was slow, and we decided to go back to Pearl River, go back to Rockland and go to work, and give up the idea of living down there. But we left the furniture and that down there because we would come for 2 vacations in a year. And as we had more children, along came Richard, and then Roxanne, and then Regan, and then
That Rick kid.
Rick. And it got so that I would take the family down when they got out of school, and your mother would stay on the farm for the entire summer, and I stayed at stayed at Pearl River, working at Rockland, and I would go back and forth. I got 3 days off a week, and I would go down on a Sunday afternoon, and I would spend Monday, Tuesday, and I would come back Wednesday night, and I would work alone in Pearl River, stay at the house. That would be for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I went to work, but as soon as 3 o'clock, 3:30 came, I would take off and head down to spend 3 days at the farm. We did that for many, many years. The children grew up, basically, as I stayed at Rockland all that time. And your mother went through about 3 more pregnancies that didn't fulfill. She would have 2 or 3 miscarriages, and they decided that there was something a little wrong in her internally in the birth procedure, and she went through an operation. Something about her womb was tipped or something, so that she could have more babies. And I think she did have the operation, which she did. And then after that, we had, I believe, April, we had Roxanne, Regan, and then Rick. And that sort of ended our baby making days in a sense. And the children were growing up, and we, like I say, I bought that the next house to us, and I owned the house up on the alleyway. So we actually owned 3 places, which unfortunately I found out years later after I sold them cheaply. Today they'd be worth a hell of a lot of money. So that brings us up to this time of where after 30 some years I retired from Rockland State and start living a life as being retired. In the meantime, unfortunately, your mother and I began to somehow drift apart. I didn't want that. I didn't want that at all. And it got down to the point where it became intolerable, and your mother had a very severe change in her attitude and her lifestyle. And I won't go into that because I will say this. Your mother was a very wonderful person to me. She was a good person, a good mother, and a good wife. And what happened, I don't really understand or know, but she left. She took, in the meantime, there was another situation. My oldest son, Randy, had a couple of situations, and as a result, there was a little girl born out of one of his situations. He hooked up with, what's her name? Betty, a mountain girl. Wasn't too bright. Well, she wasn't too bright hooking up with him. But anyhow, there was a baby girl born, and they were taking care. He was being taken care of up in a sort of a cabin development with a lot of hippies in that. And I went up there with Roxanne, who was a teenager, and I found that the babies, first of all, the place was very squalid, and there was 80 dirty diapers under their bed, and Betty had taken off she had a boy, from a previous situation. So Randy was trying to take care of the baby. And I went up there and I told a bunch of hippies, no, they were all arguing on who was going to watch the baby on what day. And I said, the hell with all this, I'm taking the baby. And they started to be an uproar. And then finally, what's his name? One of them was a great guy, I forget his name.
Bob.
What was his name?
Serenity
Bob. He was sort of like the leader of the tribe. And he looked at the people and said, wait a minute, this man is right. None of you know how to take care of a baby. And Dick's wife, Ruth, is a baby woman. She knows how to handle babies. So I told April, grab all the clothes, whatever food in the refrigerator, and we took it back took the baby to Pearl River. Your mother was overwhelmingly happy as I handed her April, who was only a few weeks old, and your mother successfully raised her with all the care and love that she could give, and was raised not as a granddaughter, she was raised as a daughter. And now we come to that end of our situation. We're raising April and we're in Pearl River. So I think we'll leave it there and go on to the next chapter next time.